Hey y'all, welcome to my first layout tutorial. I first wrote this, I believe, in 2005, and later I recorded the video back when I can only post on YouTube in 10-minute increments, so I had to break the video down. And things have changed so much since then. But so many people have used this tutorial to learn to digital scrapbook, and I'm so excited about that. And I kind of want to keep it in its original format just for history's sake. So I am going to be re-recording this right now in Photoshop Elements 11. In Photoshop Elements 11, the interface of Photoshop changed, and people new to Photoshop feel it a little frustrating to look at the old videos um, and translate it into this interface. I do want to encourage you, though, that all the tools, these are tools here on the side, are the exact same as the tools in the earlier versions and the earlier videos. What an interface means is basically they change where things are on your screen. In Facebook, for those of you that do Facebook, you may remember several times in the past years how you knew right where everything was to click, and then they changed the interface and you couldn't find anything anymore. It was all still there, you just had to find a new place to click. That is the same way with Photoshop. They will sometimes move things around, and you can do any one of the Photoshop Elements tutorials. You just have to be able to translate it to where it is in your program. 2011 and up to 2014 or 15 that they have right now, the interface is just like this. So I think we're good to go. I didn't want to spend money on a new program since I use the full version of Photoshop now. Let me take you to the website page. Here is Course 1, this is hummiesworld.com, and if you look in the sidebar, you'll see a list of all the classes that I have. Some of them are just challenges. So much good stuff in here. There's even more stuff down this way. But the first set is your classes, and you want to go to Course 1. And then you can start with lessons 1, 2, 3. This is lesson 5. Your first layout tutorial is lesson 5. And here is the PDF. So you can right click. I'm in Windows 10. You can right click and do save link as and save this to your desktop. You can print it out. You can view it on your computer. Or you can just open the link in a new tab, and here I have it in a new tab. And I've got this printed out, and I'm going to be following this tutorial so I can make sure not to forget anything, and make sure I keep it from the original tutorial. And here, down here are the original videos. You're welcome to go back and watch them. They may be helpful in case I say something else. Here are other people's first layouts that they did and shared. Please do share with us. We love to see when you and watch you learn and follow along. Here, this video is actually going to go on this page when I get it uploaded. Here is the list of the things that you will be learning in this tutorial. This is a hands-on tutorial, so I want you to open up your program, and I want you to get your photos ready and maybe a background, but basically just photos is all you need in order to do this tutorial. We've learned already in an earlier lesson that you can download tons of things for digital scrapbooking backgrounds and elements, and I've shown you in the earlier lessons here how to do that. But for this tutorial, I wanted to keep it basic and more learning about the program. And so let's go back. Here is the layout that I originally made, and I'm going to go ahead and close that out and just get started with the tutorial. It says you can do it. Once you've done a few layouts in Photoshop Elements, you'll wonder why it was ever so hard. Just jump in and start playing. We all love to play. I say that all the time. I've typed it a zillion times teaching people just play. So first, we make a new file to create your layout in. Click on the button on the far upper left corner of the screen. This is, let me give you a little tour of Photoshop Elements. I've taught this many times since this first layout tutorial, so I may be adding a few things. We have here in Photoshop Elements, we have 3 modes. We have the quick mode, which gives you some quick things to do. I never use this. The reason I never do is because I know how to do all these things in the expert mode, in the full with all the tools. So I generally do all these things in a different way. You can get in here and play. It's fun if you get in here and play and you observe what it does, and then you try to go to expert mode and do it yourself. The same way with guided. They have here a bunch of fun things for you to try to do here. And what's great is for you to look at what it does after you do it. After you do it, switch back to the expert mode and observe your layers, and you might learn. But all of my tutorials are in this expert mode. I don't think I have any tutorials in these 2 modes, but go ahead and play there if you want to play. Up here at the top is what I always call the drop-down menu. So if you hear me say drop-down menu, that's where you need to go. Over here on the left, these are your toolbars. This is your toolbar, and these are your tools. And then over here on the right is going to be your palettes. And then down here on the bottom, in the old tutorials, all of this stuff used to be in a little bar up here at the top. And I loved it up there. I do not like it down here. It takes up so much more room. But, you know, I am not the powers that be. So these are like sub-tools or additional tools. And so let's get started. So we're going to go to the drop-down menu, the File drop-down menu, and then click New and click Blank File. Now we have this pop-up box with some choices. You can go in here. The most common one would be US paper. And you see it's at 8.5 by 11 at 300 resolution. They have actually a scrapbooking paper in here. You may want to choose that. If you go back to the lesson 2, which is on printing, in that lesson you're going to understand that this box is determined by what kind of project you want to do. If you want to print out on US paper, you would do this. This is what we call rectangle scrapbooking, and you can actually change it from 8.5 by 11 to, and by manually typing in here and changing it to 11 by 8.5, which is what my layout is done, because back when I first started digital scrapbooking, I printed out all of my layouts. The more common is your square, either by 12 by 12 or 8 by 8. I tend to do 8 by 8. I think the majority of the people do 12 by 12. Uh, 8 by 8 I can still print out at home. 12 by 12 you have to get printed somewhere. But there are a lot of great options for getting things printed elsewhere. I don't print anymore, so I just do 8 by 8. I don't print very often at all. Occasionally I'll print just to hang it on the wall. Mostly I share online nowadays. So I want to keep this true to the original tutorial, so I am doing this 11 by 8.5, and your next blank here is your 300 resolution. Now this is important. This should probably always be a 300. That's the standard resolution. Um, this is how many pixels there are per inch when you go to print. If you don't have enough pixels per inch, your photo will be grainy, or it just won't print as clear. Uh, this is a standard that works well. So I would suggest you always use 300. RGB mode, that is a good mode to be in. Of course, these other two, grayscale and bitmap, grayscale is not going to give you any color. RGB is the color profile that they use to print for home printers, but it also works on other printers. Now this one, it doesn't matter which one you put it on, because as you're going to see later that we can change it. For the tutorial, I started with transparent. So then click OK. Now here is our layout file, and you can see I can grab it up here. I can just click down on this top bar and move it around. Now there's one thing that when I wrote this tutorial that has happened since 2005, and I want to show you it. It's very important. If you go to the File drop-down menu, whoops, wrong one. Sometimes I guess the wrong one. The Edit drop-down menu, Preferences, and just click General. This preference window is going to open up. Now there are two things in here that I want to make sure that you have set. And once you set them once, it stays. You don't have to do this every time you open up Photoshop Elements. You can just do it once, but make sure Zoom with Scroll Wheel is checked. That is, most of us are mouse users, and if you want to zoom in and out, get a closer view, you can just use the wheel on your mouse. If I don't have that checked, it drives me batty. And the other thing is to allow floating and enable floating. Those two are important, so make sure those are checked and click OK. And now I'm going to tell you what the floating is all about. The floating is, I'm sorry, I had to make sure we were recording. I didn't see any flashing going on. This is floating, being able to move it around. Just like this is an analogy to boats, because we have floating and we have docking. Now, to dock a file, I'm going to hold down on this bar at the top of my file, and I'm going to drag it up and to the top line until I see this blue come around my desktop, and then I'm going to let go. And now it's docked. It's permanently in here. This, I like to work in mine as docked because I'm using my scroll wheel, and you can see here the 22.4%. I'm scrolling in and out. Scrolling sometimes does not work as well when you're undocked, so I prefer to have my layout docked. plus bringing files in works better. To undock it, this is a tab, just as in your browser. Here's my browser. I'm in Chrome, and I can create a new tab. So here's a new tab, and here's my original tab. So we can go back and forth. Just as your browsers work, we have tabs in Photoshop Elements. So grab that tab by clicking down and holding with your mouse and pulling down, and now it's undocked and you can float it again. So if we move it up here, we're going to dock it and or tie it down to the edge so it doesn't move, kind of like a boat. Okay, so we've got this docked, and now we need to bring in your photos. So I have here on my desktop, now this is going to be wherever your photos are on your computer. I just put it on my desktop to make it easy for the video. I have my photos somewhere else in my computer, on my structure of my computer. But I have this folder here, and so I'm just going to open it up. Now, when you open up folders, they may be like this, where they fill the entire screen. And up here are 3 buttons. This one is minimize. This one is restore down or restore up. And this one is close. So if I wanted to close this folder, I'd just do that. I can click on it and open it back up. If I wanted to minimize it where it's still open but it's down at the bottom of my screen, I can do that, and I just click at the bottom, the folder at the bottom of my screen, and it comes back up. But what we need to do is we need to be able to see our Photoshop elements and our folder at the same time. So I'm going to click this middle button here, and you see it makes it smaller, and I can click right up here on the top, just like I was floating around in Photoshop Elements. I can click right on the top here and move this around. I can hover right over the edge on this bottom right corner, and you see I've got 2 double arrows, and I can make it smaller or larger. So you want it to be small enough and maybe off to the right so you can see all of your photos. Now I'm going to click down at the bottom and open back up my, I'm afraid that my bottom where my icons are on my computer is out of view on the video, but I clicked on the Photoshop Elements icon that to maximize it. See, I can minimize it and make it disappear, and click on that icon down at the bottom to maximize it. And then I'm going to click on the folder icon that I have open. So now you can see I have my folder icon here, and or my folder after I click on the icon here, and I have my Photoshop Elements here, so I can see both of them. Now, here's the photo that I used, and so I'm going to just click down on the photo and hold down with my left mouse and drag over to Photoshop Elements, and you see it opens right up. Then I can, this is floating, whereas the other one is not floating, and I can click right down in the middle of the photo and drag over, and you see it goes right into my layout, and I can click the X on this photo and immediately close it out. Now the reason it's important to immediately close it out is sometimes people will begin working on an original. If you work on any of your original and accidentally change them and save it, then you've lost your photo, and we don't want you to lose any of your photos. So this is why I teach this method. Now you can go to the File menu, click Open, go to the folder, and choose to open it this way. I'm choosing my photo and I'm opening it, And then do the same thing. Click on the image right in the middle and drag it over. And now I have, and then close it out. You can do it that way if you want. Now I have two of these. So we're going to learn that here in a minute. You can do it that way, but I prefer to have my folder open because I might be dragging more than one photo in, and it's convenient so you don't have to navigate to it again. Maybe this is a kit, a digital scrapbooking kit that I have with papers and elements, and I'm dragging lots of things into my layout. And so rather than clicking to go find it again, it's all right here, and I can see the previews nicely, and I just click and drag one over. So this is the way I've always recommended doing it. You really only want one thing open at a time, and you want to be closing out those originals right away. Down here at the bottom it says photo bin. If I double click on it, here is the photo bin. I used to recommend just keeping that closed all the time, but now you have to have it open since your tool options are down here. But you can see I only have one file open. If you've got a whole bunch of files open down here, I would recommend you close them out. So let's do that one more time. If I drag this over to open it, you can see now I have this one as open, and it's got blue around it, so you know that it's the active one that I'm working on. If I click on this one, it becomes the active one, but you can't see it. It's still behind there, but we know it's there because there's two here in the bin. So I would recommend closing these out so you only have one down here. But before we do that, let's just say this opens up and it's like this, and you can't see your original file that we created. You think it's disappeared. It's not disappeared. It's just on top of each other. If you have a lot of files open and you want to see them all, you can click on Windows, Images, and either Tile or Cascade will work. Here's Tile, or Windows, Images, Cascade. Well, Cascade is grayed out because I have this one docked, so Tile works good. And now I can see both of them, and I can drag this one over here if I want, and then close that out immediately. So that is all about getting your photos into your layout. And I'm looking through my tutorial, my written one, to see all the things that I have skipped. Okay, we are all the way to step 6 if you're following the written tutorial. It says, now pause and take the time to save your layout. It's always a good idea to hit that little save button often while creating, so do not accidentally lose anything should your computer crash or freeze up. So let's learn a little bit about saving. I'm going to go to the File drop-down menu and click Save As. Now, I'm going to click Desktop over here. I usually put my layouts on my desktop and then I move them permanently somewhere later, but that way I can find them. If I just click Desktop right over here, it goes to the desktop, or you can find the desktop in this long list. But regarding file types, there's 3 file types you need to know about in Photoshop Elements. This .psd is one that retains layers. So if you're going to learn about layers, right now we have 2 over here. So if you want to open it up and redo your layout, it's important that you have a version of it in a .psd version. So maybe you're going to work on your layout first thing in the morning. I used to do this all the time. You close it out, you come home for lunch, you work on it a little more, you close it out, You come home after work while something's boiling on the stove and you work on it a little more and you finish your layout. So you want to have that PSD so you can, or sometimes you get it all done and you share it and then somebody sees a spelling error. That happens to me a lot too. So PSD is what you want to save it in. Then you also have JPEG. When you're all the way done with your layout, you're going to do a save as and save it as a JPEG. And that's what you're going to share and that's what you're going to print from. The other file type you need to know is called PNG. It's a .png. That keeps transparency around it, so all of your elements that you put on your paper that you've bought from some store or downloaded for free, like a button or a sticker, they all are PNG. So those are the three formats you need to know. But for right now, we want to save our layers. So I've named my file a large falcon. And I'm going to click Save. Now remember, I can just hit Control S at any time on my keyboard and it will save it again as I work. So I do that occasionally while I'm working. You can always also go up to File and Save. It's grayed out right now because it's already saved. If I made a change, it's not grayed out anymore and I can just click there. But you see it says Control S next to it. So you also can hit Control S on your computer keyboard at any time. Now it says I've decided my photo is not large enough. Okay, so we're going to learn our first tool. This is hands-on. I want you to pause the video and then go do it yourself as we go along. So here's the Move tool. This is the first tool. It's always a great idea if you're using any one of these other tools to, when you're done using them, click that Move tool. Go default back to it because it'll save you a lot of headache. If you're on the wrong tool, then weird things will happen and you'll be wondering what is going on and get frustrated. So always go back to the Move tool. The Move tool, down here, you see when I clicked on the Move tool, the tool options open up. In the old videos, the tool options were up here at the top. So they're just down here now. They're the same tools. You just have to learn to look at the bottom if you're watching some of my older tutorials as you continue on in the class. You want to make sure this auto select layer is checked and this show bounding box is checked. The auto select layer, what happens with it is when I click down on my photo, you're going to notice it selects that layer or makes it the active layer in my layers palette. So I know it's the active layer because it has turned blue. If I click on this layer, it turns blue. And it is now the active layer. That's the transparent one in the background. If I click on this one, that's now the active layer. But if I click on it down here on the desktop, you can see it auto selects the layer over here on the palette. That's what this first one does. So if you don't have that checked, it won't automatically find where the layer is over here in the layers palette and you'll be frustrated. The other thing is show bounding box. You'll notice that the layer that's selected has a bounding box. You see this line that goes all the way around it and it has boxes around the edges. That's the bounding box, and we need that bounding box to resize, which is what we're doing in number 8 on this PDF tutorial. So to resize the box, I'm going to hover over on the corner. You see how there's a little arrow there when I hover over the corner, and I want it if I hover this way, it's going up and down. If I am out here, that's for rotating. You want the arrow to look like this, like a double arrow. When you see that, click down. I'm going to zoom out. When you see that, click down and just begin pulling up to resize. And when you're done, you're going to see this check mark. So click the check mark, and that means you've accepted it. Now, if you don't like it, don't panic. Down here at the bottom is undo, undo, and you're right back to where you were. So if you make a mistake and maybe grab this corner, this edge, and you resize it and you make somebody look really fat, you can say, no, I don't want to accept that change and go back to your original, or you can hit that undo button. So undo is also Control Z on your computer, and you can hit Control Z as many times as you want to keep undoing. So don't panic, because you can undo. So the other thing is holding down the Shift key. Now, it drives me batty. Different versions of Photoshop Elements use this differently. But if I wanted to resize disproportionately, I would hold down the Shift key, and you can see I can resize it however I want. Does not work well for photos. In some versions of Photoshop Elements, when you grab this, it allows you to be disproportionate, and then you have to hold down the Shift key to keep it proportionate. You just have to learn which way your version works. In this version, it keeps it proportionate first, and if I want to make it unproportionate, I hit the Shift key. So I'm going to resize this. Whoops, here I am holding down the Shift key. I'm going to resize this and put it down here. You can move it around by just holding down with your left mouse key, and you can move it around. If you wanted to turn it, we hover over it until we get the double arrow, and over the bounding box, click down, and you can turn it. Maybe you want to angle your photo. I am not going to do that right now. So, turning the page of my tutorial, you'll note it says here in the tutorial that sometimes, well, more so in older versions, it kind of does. It looks fuzzy until you hit the X. So moving on to step 9, we're going to learn another tool, and that is the selection tool. Now I have a tutorial that covers all the selection tools. This is just a basic to get you started. I don't like the way the grass is blown out down here, and so I am going to cut that off. And so I'm going to make a selection of the area that I want to cut off. I've got the rectangular marquee tool. You can see down here there's a sub tool for the elliptical, but I'm going to use the square or the rectangular. And I'm going to simply click down and draw. And now you see marching ants. Those lines are called, we call them marching ants. They also mean that you have a selection of that area. And so I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, on the active layer of my photo, and not this transparent layer, because it won't work if you're on the wrong layer. And then click delete on my keyboard, and you can see I've taken away that ugly part of that grass. Now maybe I want to take away a little more. I'm going to draw another box and hit delete, and there, all of that is gone. I don't know if in my original layout if it's all gone or not, but that's what we're going to do for now. So step 10, next I'm going to make my background a color. So right now my background is this transparent layer, and I want it to be white. And so if you just hit D on your keyboard, your foreground color and your background color become black and white. And you can hit this arrow, and it will exchange the foreground and the background color, or you can just hit X on your keyboard and it does the same thing. So right now I want my foreground color to be white, And I'm going to introduce you to the Paint Bucket tool. So the Paint Bucket tool, I'm going to click on it, and your default should be this paint rather than a pattern fill. And I'm going to click on my transparent background layer and just go out here onto my desktop and click down, and you can see it fills it with white. You see it's changed over here on the palette too. It's now changed to white. Okay, it says now back to our regularly scheduled lesson on paying attention to the layers palette. Are you ready for some playing? I love to play. So we're going to play a little bit to learn a little bit more about the layers palette. Um, and there's more about deleting and making new layers in the next tutorials. But basically, once you get the concept for layers down, you'll wonder why you ever thought it was so hard. So think of it, I usually take, when I teach in my local class, a stack of books, all three of them different sizes, and stack them up so the largest one is on the bottom and the smallest one is on top, and you can see them all. But if you take that smallest one and you move it down so that it's below the larger books, you can no longer see it. That is the concept of the layers palette. You can drag layers here in your layers palette. Simply click down on this blank space on the layers palette and move it up. And now you can see my image has disappeared. It has it. Oh, see, I got that paint bucket tool. That's not good. Default back to your move tool. Always best. So you can see over here in the layers palette that the photo layer is not gone. It's still there. You just can't see it because something bigger than it is covering it up. And so I'm going to grab this photo layer and I'm going to drag it up. You can also drag them down if you want. You can, if you have, 3 layers, 4 layers, you could drag it wherever you want in your layout. So that is the concept of layers that you're going to be learning to play with. Also, this little eye here, this is an invisibility icon. If you click on it, it makes that layer invisible. If you click on it again, it makes it visible. So invisible and visible. Sometimes you might want to put something on there and then you say, oh, I'm not sure I want to use that photo. So I'm going to make it invisible so it's not showing out here, but it's still there in case I want to make it visible again later to use it again later. I use this when editing photos also. I will make a copy of the layer and then make the first layer invisible in case I mess up on the copy while I'm playing. I've got the original right there. But that is just something good to know about the invisibility. Okay, now I want to put a mat behind my photo. So I hope you're following along. I hope you have a white background and a photo on your paper. Remember, you can always bring a mat that you've downloaded or purchased and downloaded from a store or gotten as a freebie, but we are going to actually make one from nothing. So we're going to click on the new layer icon right here. It says create new fill or adjustment layer. That's not the right one. Right here. Create a new layer. It's this first one. It looks like a little piece of paper. In some versions, these icons are down here at the bottom of the layers palette. In this version, it's at the top. So I'm going to click on that. You can see it just made a layer. That's a transparent layer. Observe that it is the active layer. We want it to be the active layer. So now we're going to go back and get that marquee tool that selection tool that we made before, and I am going to click down. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little better. I'm going to click down just a little bit above. Don't worry, because you can change this later. Just a little bit above my photo, and I'm going to draw down to the other corner. I am clicking down on my left mouse button and holding down and drawing to the other corner, and I let loose, and you can see I have a selection that's a little bit larger than my photo. Now I want to get a color in from my photo because I want it to match my photo. Is this the way it click on the foreground? Okay, so I'm going to click on this foreground color, open up the color picker, and if I come out here to my photo, you can see I can click down and it chooses a nice color from my photo. I can click around and choose another one. There's a nice green. So I decide I like this color. I'm going to click OK, and you can see my foreground color is now a green color. So I'm going to get my paint bucket tool. I'm going to make sure I'm on the right layer, and I'm going to click down inside the selection. If I click down out here, it's not going to work. It has to be down in the selection, and you see it has made that area green. It has changed it to green in the color palette. And now I can click Control D for deselect to make the marching ants go around. Default back to my move tool, and I have a mat around my layout. Have you saved recently? Control S for save. Okay, now I'm studying my layout to determine that I do not have room for both my title and my journaling, so I need to make my photo and my mat a little smaller. Rather than resizing them one at a time, like this one and then the photo one, and trying to guess and get them just exactly right, I'm going to select both of them. So with the matte layer as the active layer, so I'm going to hold down my control key and I'm going to click on the second layer, and now you can see they're both the active layer, and then I can click this little chain and it links both of the layers so that when I grab this bounding box, it moves and resizes both of them at the same time. And they can be permanently linked like that. But if I want to unlock them, I can click on either of the layers and then just click on the chain, and you can see now the chain is no longer gold, so they're unlocked. I can also hold down my control key and click on both of them to make them blue and active, and then just keep holding down my control key. Well, I guess I can let go. And then with both of them still blue, I can temporarily resize them. As long as I have them both blue. If you want to permanently lock them so they're always together, you can use this chain. Okay, so that's the next part of that layout, and I hope you paused and played with that, and if not, go do that and then come back. So I have decided I want my title in the same color as the bird's feathers. So I'm going to click on this eyedropper tool. We're going to learn a new tool. Here is they call it the color picker tool. It used to be the eyedropper tool. And then I'm going to click out here on the fur of my bird. And you're going to see it makes that color my foreground color. Actually, I'm going to try this color from the tail. And nah, I don't like that color. I'm going to go back to this color. And then I'm going to activate my text tool, and you can see down here it's you can choose your font just like you can on a Word document. I don't know what font I chose in my original layout, but I'm just going to use Arial for right now. And I'm going to click down right up here where I want to put my title. And whoa, it's way too big. I want my title that big. Change it down to about 30. And I'm going to type in Finders of Fierce Flesh-Eating Falcons. And I'm going to click OK. Now, I really want all of these centered instead of left justified. So I'm going to click down on my text tool, and I'm going to click right out here in the middle of my text box. And then I'm going to highlight it all, just like you would in a Word document. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to click Center Text and click OK. But now you can see the text kind of moved off of the page. You can move and resize the text just like you can any other layer. So I can click down and move this wherever I want. If I want to click this corner and resize it this way, I can do that. So that is a little bit about the very basics about adding text. I want to give you a little tip that I don't think's in this document, but people find it frustrating when selecting text. So make sure your text tool is the active tool, and if you try to click down right here near the beginning or right here near the end of the text, to highlight, what ends up happening is you create accidentally another text layer, which that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to edit this one. So my tip for you when you're using the text tool to avoid frustration, if you want to go back and edit your text, click down right in the middle of your text first, because that's going to select that text layer here. Now I can go and easily highlight it all. And let's say I want to change the color now. Maybe I'm going to go down here to this color box, click color, and I can choose any color in here, but I'm going to go out to that was weird. I'm going to have to do that again. I'm going to go out to my layer with the eyedropper and choose this green and change it to green. Let's try that again. That was a little odd, different version. So I click on this color picker, and you can see I could only choose from these swatches here. But if I want to open up the color picker that we've seen before, I had to click this little icon here. And that picks up the color picker. And I have a whole tutorial about the color picker that you're going to learn about more later. But then you can click another color out of your photo, and you may need to scroll down a little bit so you can see both of your photo and that at the same time. Maybe I want this color now. There's a good color, nice and dark. So that's how you can change the color, and then you can select and change the font just like you can in Word. There, I have a new font. And you can also, rather than resizing this way with the Move tool, you can click down in here to select it all and change it here to any size. If you want, you can even manually type it let's say I want 40. No, that's too big. 33. There we go. So now I have my text for my title. And you've learned a little bit, just some basics about putting text in. So I'm a firm believer that every layout should have journaling and a date and names. So be sure to add these with your text tool. Also add another green mat behind some of my journaling. So I've got actually here a Word document where I already typed out my text to make this tutorial shorter, so I'm going to copy it. Now, the thing with the text tool is you can click down once and just begin typing, or you can draw a text box. So for this case, I'm going to draw a text box and then hit Control V, and it puts all my text in there, but you can see my text is too large. So I'm going to hit Control A to highlight it all and change it to a size 12. So I actually have some other journaling in here. I'm going to suggest it might be helpful to go back and watch that original video also, because I may do things slightly different in there that are still the same. And in this case, I want all the text left justified. And then I think I had another thing of text up here in the original, and that was this text. When I do my journaling, I tend to type it right on my page, but for the sake of the video, now I can grab this text box and I can grab these bounding boxes and move them to make room for more text. Now you can see my text is kind of overlapping, so I'm going to move this one down and move that one there. That text box doesn't need to be that large anymore. I'm going to grab it and move it up. So there is all of my journaling, and I think I had a date on there. Also, I'm just going to click down and put September 1, 2005. Okay, so there's my date. And in my tutorial, it says I've added some more text boxes so that my text is more readable. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do just as we did before, and I'm going to create a new layer and a rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to draw around my text. I'm going to change to this green color, get my paint bucket, and I'm going to fill out there and Control D. My text disappeared. Why did it disappear? Because this layer is above my text layer, so I'm just going to drag it down, and there we go. So you see, this is how you can make the text more visible. Actually, in my layout, I see I have this text as white. So the white on the dark background is readable, or a dark color on a white background is readable. So number 16, as always, you want your eye to go to the photos first when someone looks at a layout for the first time. This is called making your photo pop. So you just learned your first design principle. I have a whole tutorial on design principles in course 1. So my photo is not popping in this layout. Uh-oh, I need to change the color of the mat. So here we go. We're going to learn another new technique. Um, my mat, I think, and photo, I need to resize a little bit. I think it looks funny the way it is. Okay, so Control S, gotta save it. So there are many ways to change the color of this mat, and I have a whole tutorial in course 1. I want you to keep going and you're going to learn it, but we're gonna learn the first one in this lesson. First, make sure your mat layers, your active layers. So I've got the bounding box around it, so I know I've got the right green one because I have 2 green ones here. This green one puts the bounding box there. This green one puts the bounding box there, or I could have just clicked on it and it would have auto-selected this layer. So I'm going to then go to the Enhance drop-down menu. I never go this way, but for the sake of learning, I think it's Adjust Color and then Adjust Hue and Saturation. You're going to see it says Control U next to it. Normally I hit Control U on my keyboard. And then I'm going to move the sliders, and you can see that it changes the color of my mat. I can make it darker, which you want. If your photo's light, you want a dark mat. If your photo's dark, you want a light mat. So I can change the color of the mat. I can make it brighter. Ooh, see, that's ugly. And I can just move these around. As again, I have a whole tutorial that teaches these in detail. So you can change it to whatever you want to make your eye go to that photo first. Okay, 17. Here's an important step many newbies overlook. You will be surprised at what a difference this makes. So this is very important, and this is talking about drop shadows. So let's go find drop shadows. I'm on this mat here, and have you hit Control S lately? I'm on this mat here, and um, in this case, the styles are down at the bottom. In other videos, you're going to see me click on them at the top. You just have to learn where they're at. And so here is Effects, which is FX. So click on the Effects, and then click on, make sure it may come up as default on Filters or Effects. You need to be on the one that says Styles. And then in the drop-down box, you may come up with, maybe it might come up with bevels. That is a common mistake for newbies. Bevels sometimes make you think that you have a drop shadow. You can play with bevels later, but we want to make sure that we are on drop shadows because this is the most common. Now, drop shadows, if you use any of these, like this one here, it's gonna end up unrealistic. This one here, that's noisy. I never use this one. Your best bets are to use this soft edge or this low. And so I'm going to simply double click on soft edge, and you're going to see it puts I'm trying to click off there. I'm going to click out here. You're going to see it puts a nice drop shadow on that layer. I'm going to click on that layer again to make sure it's the active layer and choose low and click off, and you can see that's a nice one too. I'm going to make sure that this is the active layer by clicking on it. You can also go back to your layers palette to make sure you're on the active layer. And I'm going to choose this soft again. Let's go back to the layers palette, and you're going to see that there's an FX icon right here. That means you have a layer style on that layer. So double click on that and you can adjust your layer style. So maybe I think that that's just a little too dark. I can lower the opacity to it. And now I think it looks much nicer. You need a darker shadow on colored backgrounds and a lighter shadow on your white or light backgrounds, you can adjust the size or the distance, and I have actually a whole nother tutorial on that coming up, but this is just for basics. And then click OK. I want to put a drop shadow on this layer, so I'm going to go back to my effects and double click, go back to my layers palette, and I have a layer style on that. I don't recommend putting drop shadows on your text. You need it on almost every other layer, like maybe this photo layer. You might want to observe, I'm going to put a low one on it. So you see that also looks, I don't like the low. It needs, since I've tweaked my other one, I need to tweak this one. Make it a little bit lower in distance. There, that looks a little bit better. Center this a little bit more. So I don't recommend you putting drop shadows on text, but you might want to look through your layers palette and make sure every layer has a drop shadow on it, except for maybe your background and your text layers. And you can do that by making sure that the FX is there. Sometimes your titles can have layer styles if you've got the right font, because they're large and you need the right font, like a chunky font. What's the most common chunky font? Impact is the most common chunky font. So this is a chunky font, so you could get away with putting a drop shadow on that. That does not look good. Let's do low. Low, that looks okay. And if you wanted to, you can play around with some of these other styles, like go ahead and add a bevel to your text. But you want to make sure it's readable. So that is my tip for text. Let's see, on the tutorial, what's next? We're going into 18. For my final layout, I decided to bring in a background I made, but the green mat in the upper right didn't look right after I added the background. So back to the layers palette, and here's it's not a very good background. I just took it straight from the photo. It's a background from the days of old, from 2005, when things looked much different in the digital scrapbooking world. So there's my background, and in the tutorial it says now that this color, this matte, doesn't look right, and so I am going to change that by using the eyedropper tool and getting a color from my layout, maybe this color, a gray, getting my paint bucket tool and filling it. But now you can't see it. Or I can hit Control U and do it this way, as we've learned. There's not enough color in it. So you can see how you can play around. Now it says that I want to make what I'm doing is making a piece of vellum. So I'm going to hit Control Z and make it that white color, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the opacity and lower the opacity, and you're going to see that it changes it to look like a piece of vellum so that your paper underneath shows through. So if you raise the opacity all the way up, you can see you don't see any of the paper underneath, and you lower the opacity, and now you can see the paper from underneath. So that is making a piece of vellum by changing the opacity of the layer. That's pretty cool. Other helpful tips, if you want to zoom in and out to see something better, You can hold down the Control key and press the minus or plus key on your numeric keypad on your computer, or you can just use the scroll wheel like I showed you. To print the layout, then you're going to, let's say we have it all done, which actually what I'm going to do is, here is my original finished layout. So I'm going to open it up, and there's my original one. And you can see I went back and added another photo and hit File, Save As, and JPEG, and then save, and then make sure the quality is 12 for this purpose. And now on my desktop, I have this layout that's a JPEG, and I can open it up and I can print it, or I can send it off somewhere to be printed. So those are your basic techniques for making your first layout. You can see I added in my original one, I added more mats under all of my text. And so if you have any questions, I hope this video has been helpful to you. So if it's kind of long, and I hope you've paused and done each step with me. And please come to the Facebook group or to Flickr and share your first layout with me, or send me an email, however you can do it, because we love to see what you do and encourage you. And then continue on with the next lesson in Course 1. After this, it talks more about duplicating and deleting layers, and you're going to learn so much more in all of these basic lessons here. I hope to see you around.
All right, as you see here, she's a beauty. Now, if you look close, she's tearing the flesh off the animal. We'll try to get a little closer. Look at that. Look at those claws. Oh yeah, there goes a big chunk.
Maybe just go towards talon.
Yeah, this is right. Backyard Discovery Channel. Now we're in a very dangerous position. Any sudden movements, we could be taken out at any time. Where'd it go? Oh, she saw it. Hey, run, run, run. Oh, crap, oh, crap. Ah, ah, ah.